That, my friends, was a rough one. Minnesota lost this time around, 31-28. Dallas improved to 3-7. Minnesota dropping to 4-6. Dalton, 22 of 32, 68.7%, 203 yards, 6.3 average, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, was sacked once with a 104.0 quarterback rating. Now on the ground, Ezekiel Elliott got over 100 yards for the first time this season. 103 on 21 carries, 4.9 average yards per carry. Tony Pollard, 5 for 60 yards and a 42-yard touchdown run. CeeDee Lamb with 2 for 12. Dalton 3 for 5. 31 carries, 180 yards, 5.8 yards per carry for the Dallas Cowboys today. And obviously the one score from Tony Pollard. Now, on the receiving end, Amari Cooper, 6 of 7 for 81. CeeDee Lamb, 4 of 6 for 34 yards and a score. Michael Gallup, 2 of 5 for 29. Dalton Schultz, 4 of 6 for 25 in the game-winning score. Bell caught 1 for 13. Ezekiel Elliott, 2 for 2, 11 yards and 1 score. And then you have Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, and oddly, Andy Dalton rounding it out the bottom there. Now, they're 5-11 on third down, that's 45%, 75% in the red zone at 3 of 4. They were +1 in the turnover margin, 28 minutes and 11 seconds of possession time, had 4 penalties, 30 yards. Now, over on Minnesota, Kirk played, I thought, really well today. 22 of 30 for 73%, 314 yards, 10.5 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, didn't throw an interception, was sacked twice, had a rating of 140.1. Dalvin, 27 carries for 115 yards, 4.3 yards per carry, and a score. Madison, 1 for 6. Kirk, 1 for 4. 29 carries, 125 yards, 4.3 yards per carry, and Dalvin's 1 score. Now in the receiving game, Thielen had himself quite the day. 8 of 11 for 123 yards, 2 scores, one of them completely ridiculous. 15.4 yards per catch. Jefferson, 3 of 5 for 86, 28.7 yards per catch, and 1 score. Cook, 5 of 5 for 45. Rudolph, 3 of 3 for 28. Irv Smith, 2 of 2 for 23. BC caught his 1 for 9. And then Ham didn't catch his lone target. They were 6 of 10 on third down, so 60%, 100% in the red zone, converting all 3 times. They were -1 in the turnover margin, 31 minutes, 49 seconds, time of possession. And then you have a ton of penalties. 8 for 80 penalty yards, which is, don't want to see it. It's not good. Now, I'm not wanting to hear any of Kirk Cousins is the problem today. I'm not hearing it. Because he might have been our best player on the field today. And I think the only competition could probably be Adam Thielen today. And I'm just not having that conversation. Now, I do think we need to talk about the offensive line. When Ezra came in, he solidified it. It stabilized. It got normal. It was like, oh wow, this is good. Let's continue. And then he gets out of the lineup and pressures galore. And the chemistry is something that I think is very underrated when it comes to the offensive linemen, because you do hear people sometimes bring it up. It's a real thing. And this is what happens when you're playing well as a group, and then all of a sudden one in the group is taken away. These things happen. And just because I feel like I do have to mention it, Jefferson has to catch that last ball. That probably doesn't turn in some weird, desperate 4th down, at least not that early in the late game stages. If he can catch that little crosser, maybe get out of bounds, get a first down, things like that. So, and then there's penalties, and then, well, look, another flag. It's just like in my brain. Too many flags today. On the offensive line, I feel like Bradbury, O'Neal, and Dozier all got flags. Don't want to see that. You just got to actually take that down. Defensively, where do we want to start on this one? Because I kind of hated most, if not all, of what I saw on defense today. It really reminded me of the first 6 weeks before the bye. Because the defensive interior line kind of went back to being completely pathetic. And I honestly don't think Michael Pierce can come fast enough in 2021 because for those who know Michael Pierce and have seen him in Baltimore before this season was played, he's really, really, really good at stopping the run. Clearly, Minnesota was not today. 180 yards on the ground. But just the whole D-line even, because even though the defensive interior is probably worse than the exterior, we still couldn't get any pressure, which probably didn't help that they decided to put Zach Martin in at right tackle last minute. So all of a sudden you had Odenigbo and or Wanham, depending on who was out there at the time, going up against an all-pro in Zach Martin. Probably not ideal for them, but at the end of the day, you couldn't generate enough pressure, which meant those three weapons they have could kind of run unchecked. And that was one thing I said. You can't turn the ball over. You can't not generate pressure, because for the most part, this defense cannot handle that. If you can't get to the quarterback and you have a ton of weapons, this secondary is not good. Well, they're not good enough or healthy enough to actually tame that beast, especially when there's a bunch of weapons. So it doesn't really surprise me that when they couldn't generate pressure, all of a sudden everything hit the fan in the secondary, because it's bad. And overall, I thought the defense as a whole was just kind of abysmal, maybe except for Kendricks, who almost had a game-sealing interception, maybe, which, oh, that's rough. Just out of reach. So close, yet so far. And yeah, for the most part, it was just not good. Not good at all. And overall, I know these things will happen with younger and more inexperienced defenses, things like that, or just units and sides of the ball. These things will happen. There are learning curves. However, my problem is still with the defensive interior, because at least on the edges, you can say, well, Odenigbo really hasn't started games before. Wanham himself is a rookie. You traded Ngakoue, who was he was the veteran of the group. And Jalen Holmes, he did get hurt today, but he's another kind of tweener that's been playing more edge. Hercules Mataafa, another player that hasn't started a game, and he's out there on the edge, and it's completely inexperienced. But on the interior, you have guys who have started games in the years past. Mainly Jaleel Johnson and Shamar Stephen, who have actually started games for this team in the past couple of years leading up to this year. And I don't know if there's no excuse there. I don't know what theirs is, because I don't think there is one. Those two are just not good enough, and I think that's something they're going to have to look at in the offseason, even with Michael Pierce coming back. There's no impact plays coming from the middle of this defense on the line. You have to fix that, because otherwise, if you can't penetrate from the middle, teams that think they can actually run on you, they'll punch you in the mouth, and it will result in how today went, allowing nearly 6 yards a carry, which is not good, because once they can run, they can do whatever they want, and it's not good. And once again, I know most of this defense is essentially a second or third quarter preseason defense. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that. That is what this is. Because if we want to project this into starters that will be on this team next season, which probably won't include Anthony Harris, there's not too many I'm too confident on being starters. I guess if you want to count the nickel position as a starter, you have Jeff Gladney. I would assume that one would be in there. Harrison Smith, that one. Kendricks, that one. And aside from that, I'm not sure how many of these guys will be returning to Minnesota as a shoo-in starting player. And most of these are either in by injury, or they had the vacancy through free agency, and now it's just super young there. So, but there's a lot of spots here that may be different next season. And it's just, yeah. But this game in specific, I would say is probably 80% just on the defense. I would probably put, if we had to really divvy it up, probably the other 20% on the line, because the offensive line played horribly today. I thought there was just way too many times Kirk was under fire. He was on the ground too much. You can't do that and expect to win games, because if your quarterback's getting hit, it creates a lot of chaos. And the fumble before half turned out to be one of the most costly things in this game because they went down, they scored 3 off of that. 28-31. Lost by 3. Not a good look. Then you also have the strip sack on the first drive, which ended up in 7. So 10 points off turnovers. Minnesota didn't have a single point off of turnovers today. After the Kendricks pick, they ended up punting, which was partially because of a false start on 3rd and 9 from Brian O'Neill, creating it to be 3rd and 14, and you get a little dump off to Dalvin Cook, and then it's punting time. And then the other time, which you don't really count it as a turnover, but there was a turnover on downs on 4th down, and what ended up happening was that fumble right before half. So you didn't cash in on any of those moments there, no capitalization. You get into these situations here, and it's just not a good look. They are going to have learning curves. I understand that. But it's really frustrating to see an offense that should be, well, it's either win now or certainly mostly win now, to have a defense that's built to have a team that's looking towards the future right now. And it's really frustrating to watch this because when you watch the offense, you're getting your hopes up like, oh, they can do something. And you watch the defense, it's like, oh, yeah, they're not very good there. So I think there's going to be something's got to give when this season ends because this really does feel like a 7-9, 8-8 kind of team. I wasn't really getting my hopes too far up there when it came to the playoff chances because I know some people were saying, well, Dallas, Jacksonville, and Carolina, those are the next 2 after this Dallas game. They were saying maybe you can get to 7-5, which maybe they could have. But even after that, you still got to play the Bears again. Who knows how that goes? Chicago is Chicago. Minnesota struggles usually with them. Then you also have Tampa and New Orleans. Sure, you have the Lions, who don't look very motivated to play anymore. But overall, I felt like a week ago this was like an 8-8, 7-9 team. I feel the same way today because of things like this. This offense will get them wins. It will get them wins when maybe they shouldn't win, but at the same time, this defense will take away wins that they should have, like today. And I would like to know your guys' comments. Those are kind of my overall thoughts right now. But your thoughts and opinions, much appreciated. Down in the comment section below. Liking, subscribing, also super helpful. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.